I'm Peter Lee, and this is Newsbud's China Watch. This is going to be an exciting year. We've got the People's Republic of China trying to cope with slowing growth and mounting financial problems. We've got the United States affirming its competition with China, but in denial about its own eroding relative military and diplomatic edge in Asia. And we've got Trump, and debate and disunion in the U.S. foreign policy and military establishment, just as some key decisions need to be made. These are exciting times. Hopefully, the excitement won't kill us. This week, I'm going to focus on Uyghur Islamic militancy. It's a major security issue in China's Xinjiang Autonomous Region, but has sunk roots in Asia, as far west as Syria and Turkey, and deep into Afghanistan and Pakistan. In my opinion, the first meaningful exercise in PRC power projection may well be in AFPAC, not the South China Sea. Russia's success to date in Syria has created the perception that if you go in big with the right circumstances and the right partners, Islamic militancy can not only be contained, it can be rolled back. The People's Republic of China's issues with militants who threaten its rule over the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region were on full display last week, both within Xinjiang and as far as 4,000 kilometers away. Within the PRC borders, an attack on a Chinese Communist Party compound in a remote town in Xinjiang using explosives and knives led to the death of 3 attackers and 2 victims.
An update on Wednesday's terrorist attack in northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The Ministry of Public Security says 2 people were killed before all the 3 attackers were shot dead. Another 3 people were injured. The attackers entered the yard of the Moyu County Committee of the CPC in a vehicle on Wednesday afternoon. They attacked workers with knives and detonated an explosive device. Previous reports said the attack was carried out by 4 people, causing 1 innocent person's death.
These attacks occur with some frequency, despite severe PRC security policies that mimic, perhaps deliberately, Israeli tactics on the West Bank. Western governments and media balk at calling these attacks by Uyghurs inside the PRC as terrorism, which infuriates the PRC. However, on the matter of Uyghur militancy outside the PRC, Western and PRC attitudes seem to be converging. I'm going to be talking about Uyghurs in Syria, and for the interest of simplicity, I'm going to ignore the various rebrandings of Al-Qaeda that have occurred, calling it Al-Nusra Front and so on. And I'm just going to talk about Al-Qaeda and the cooperation between Al-Qaeda in Syria and Uyghurs who are organized under the Turkestan Islamic Party. In what was big news in Syria and for China, coalition air power, in other words, the United States, attacked an al-Qaeda conference in northern Syria on January 2nd. 2 carloads of leaders received the special attention of a drone strike, and among the dead was reportedly one Abu Omar el-Turkestani. El-Turkestani means from Turkestan. Turkestan is the name given to the Xinjiang region by those who reject the PRC's rule. And Abu Omar el-Turkestani was a Uyghur fighting in Syria with al-Qaeda. According to Thomas Jocelyn at Long War Journal, Abu Omar was not just a leader of the Turkestan Islamic Party, which promotes armed resistance to the PRC in Xinjiang. He was also a key figure in al-Qaeda in Syria as a whole. Jocelyn speculates that Abu Omar was brokering an enhanced operational alliance between Uyghur and Arab fighters, one in which he himself would play a leadership role. The United States found out about the meeting and attacked. Global Times, the quasi-official PRC mouthpiece, was pretty happy with the death of Abu Omar and presented it furthermore as evidence that the U.S. and PRC are finally in step on the issue of stamping out Uyghur militancy instead of condoning it, as the PRC believes the United States has been doing in recent years. Indeed, the United States has sometimes shown a soft spot for Uyghur militants, most conspicuously by designating the Uyghur detainees at Guantanamo as non-enemy combatants, that is to say, not enemies of the United States, but that they had declared themselves as enemies of China and had been inadvertently swept up in the Afghanistan dragnet. The United States accepted this position and deemed the Uyghur detainees at Guantanamo unreturnable to the PRC because of the possibility that they would face the death penalty there. Since they could not be repatriated to China, and China also blocked their release to any other third country, ironically, the Guantanamo Uyghurs rusticated at Guantanamo for over a decade and have only in recent years been turned over to remote foreign countries. The U.S. harbors the leader of the avowedly nonviolent Uyghur World Congress, Rabia Kadir, in the United States, and Radio Free Asia devotes itself to providing a platform for self-expression and grievance for Uyghurs inside Xinjiang. China can probably thank Turkey's President Erdogan for elevating Uyghur militants to a pan-Asian security threat that even the United States now takes seriously. President Erdogan has presented Turkey as a protector of the Uyghurs on the grounds that they are the easternmost representatives of the Turkic-speaking peoples of Central Asia that, to Erdogan at least, should look to Turkey as their ethnic and cultural leader. In recent years, Erdogan has posed as the champion of the Turkic peoples, most notoriously with his extravagantly costumed honor guard. This guard includes one soldier representing the Uyghurs. In the photo here, it's the third figure from the bottom on the left. Turkey also became aggressive in its outreach to the Uyghurs of the PRC, providing consular services and false passports to Uyghurs who had managed to escape the PRC to Thailand and other countries was a staple of Turkish policy by 2014 and is a matter of public record. Uyghurs who escaped China were settled in designated communities inside Turkey, where they presumably live under surveillance by Turkish security forces. A darker aspect emerged as the PRC alleged, first via quasi-state media and then openly through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that the Turkish government was covertly arranging Turkish passports for Uyghurs still in Xinjiang, and that some PRC Uyghurs were finding their way out of China and onto the battlefield in Syria. Lebanese media reported on an entire Uyghur exile town in northern Syria, populated both by Uyghur fighters and their dependents. Turkey was also implicated in the provision of passports to the Uyghurs who committed the notorious Kunming train station massacre of March 1, 2014, that killed 29 people. The perpetrators allegedly committed their crime when their original plans to exfiltrate to Turkey via the Vietnam border were balked. Some apparently did escape the PRC after the attack and were detained in Indonesia with Turkish passports so flawless that they could not be characterized as counterfeit. My personal opinion is that Erdogan sought to cultivate Uyghur militants as a counterweight to Arabic-speaking fighters supported by Gulf elements in Syria. Did the United States know? What did they think? If, as the leaked Kerry audio tape indicates, the U.S. was not unwilling to see ISIS rise and become an additional pressure point on Bashar al-Assad in Syria, perhaps similar calculations were at work in U.S. attitudes at the time towards Erdogan's Uyghur adventure. Uyghur militants under Turkish influence might have also looked like an attractive power projection asset to the United States in Central Asia, where U.S. clout is waning, but vulnerable stands might be susceptible to Turkish intimidation via some well-trained, battle-hardened militant formations. Beyond the stands is, of course, China, whose autonomous region of Xinjiang is seen as a significant strategic vulnerability by U.S. planners. I would speculate, however, that any dreams Erdogan had of establishing himself as a hegemon of Central Asia with the help of a Uyghur militant cohort, founded on the implacable hostility of the People's Republic of China, Turkey's tilt toward Russia, and the collapse of U.S.-Turkish relations. Today, for whatever reason, the People's Republic of China is happy to see the U.S. military is forcibly retiring Uyghur fighters in Syria. Remarkably, the Turkestan Islamic Party is not the only Uyghur-related militant force bedeviling the Eastern Hemisphere. ISIS claimed credit for the horrific New Year's Eve massacre at the Reyna nightclub in Istanbul. The perpetrator was described in all reports as Central Asian, though Turkish media variously attributed the crime to a militant from Kyrgyzstan, a Uyghur, and most recently an Uzbek national, Abdul Kadir Masharipov. Masharipov, if he is indeed the culprit, may have been of Uyghur ethnicity. Reportedly, during his escape after the attack, he sought and obtained assistance at a Uyghur restaurant. Now it is reported that Uzbeks inside Turkey helped him prepare the attack. Perhaps a true measure of his significance is his nom de guerre, his reported fighter alias of Abu Muhammad Harasani. Harasani looks to be a variation of Khorasan. Khorasan is an ambitious geographical marker ISIS basically uses for everything to the east of the Arab world on the Eurasian continent that deserves its own caliphate. Practically speaking, it appears that the only real-world Khorasan affiliate is probably a small group of militants in eastern Afghanistan who have declared allegiance to ISIS and are identified as ISKP, Islamic State Khorasan Province. The Khorasan militants are reportedly a multi-ethnic group composed of militants from the Pakistan Taliban and the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan. The Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, despite its name, is reportedly an all-star team of Islamic militants from throughout the region, including Uyghurs. They are strongly committed to Islamic insurgency across Central Asia, opposed to the Afghan Taliban in Pakistan, strongly anti-China, and also at loggerheads with the Turkestan Islamic Party. ISKP allows the PRC to remind its neighbors that Islamist militancy is not just an issue for atheistic Han Chinese infidels occupying Xinjiang. The IS pretensions to a Central Asian caliphate potentially threatens all the states in the region, and the Reina massacre indicates that ISKP fighters may have been able to make their way across Asia, not just to fight with ISIS in Syria, but also operate within Turkey. Even though there were no Chinese killed in the Reina attack, and despite significant tensions in relations with Turkey over the Uyghur issue, the PRC Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded with a special statement of concern and commitment to cooperation in the field of counterterrorism.
中方坚决反对一切形式的恐怖主义，愿同土方和国际社会加强协调与协作，共同防范和应对恐怖主义威胁，维护地区和世界的和平与安全。
So, the PRC is dedicated to beating back not one but two Uyghur-related militant organizations focusing on Xinjiang that have been energized and enlarged by the war in Syria. This probably accounts for the prompt and powerful pushback China has given to what appears to be a foolhardy gambit by India, Modi's attempt, presumably backed by the United States, to pose as Afghan's primary security partner against Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban. In early December, at the Heart of Asia conference in Amritsar, India, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani publicly threw in with India as his strategic partner, presumably at the behest of the United States. Ghani's remarks included pointed insults at Pakistan, disdain for the Afghan Taliban, disregard for China, and a tongue bath of praise for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, postures that I believe will prove to be excessive and premature. In response, the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Pakistan clubbed together in a meeting in Moscow just after Christmas to declare that what people really needed to worry about down there was the burgeoning ISIS threat in Afghanistan, not the Afghan Taliban. Western reporting focused on the disregard at the Moscow meeting for the overwhelming and malign influence of Pakistan on Afghan security through its support of the Taliban insurgency. This is all well and good. However, Pakistan is the PRC's main strategic asset on the subcontinent, and the Afghan Taliban is the PRC's key interlocutor inside Afghanistan. It does not attack Chinese interests, and it does not readily harbor Uyghur fighters. Modi's strategic vision for South Asia involves explicitly marginalizing and destabilizing Pakistan as a terror-sponsoring state, and implicitly involves curbing Chinese reach into South Asia by crippling Pakistan. By posing as a protector of the people of Gilgit-Baltistan and Balochistan, the two Pakistan territories that, not coincidentally, mark the northern and southern extremes of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, Modi has de facto declared himself the enemy of the PRC in South Asia. To add to that, Modi's pursuit of geopolitical confrontation with Pakistan also threatens the political fortunes of the PRC-friendly Afghan Taliban. The bell's been rung, it cannot be unrung, and the PRC sees its vital strategic and national security issues at stake and under threat in AFPAC from Modi's India. The threat of Islamic militancy in Uyghur havens in northern Afghanistan dictate pretty unambiguously that the PRC does not want to see the Afghanistan portfolio falling into the hands of India, a pro-US adversary. The PRC has not been intimidated by Modi's more aggressive posture against Pakistan. The bad news for Modi and Ghani is that now it's not just China. Russia has joined the Pakistan-China axis, presumably out of concern about U.S. ambitions to turn India into a full-fledged military ally. AFP reported rather anxiously that the Russian embassy in Kabul is being restocked with the older generation of Afghan hands, an indication that neither China nor Russia are throwing the Taliban or Pakistan under the bus just quite yet. I'm looking for Ghani to smell the coffee and walk back his pro-India position. Otherwise, I think he might find his situation turning pretty grisly. It's worth noting that the United States and its Asian priorities are not the only items on the Chinese security agenda. I believe that reflects a conscious PRC policy of going where the U.S. isn't, Central Asia, or soon won't be, Afghanistan, and dealing with the local balance of forces from a position of advantage as it sees fit. However, America still has the ability to set the world's and China's agenda in East Asia via North Korea, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. Plenty of opportunity for contention here, with conflicts between the U.S. and PRC over China's theft of a U.S. Navy underwater drone, and the furor surrounding Taiwan leader Tsai Ing-wen's visit to the United States and her meetings with Ted Cruz and the governor of Texas, but not Donald Trump. But these perennial hot-button issues are being overshadowed by the North Korean nuclear situation. North Korea is the one area in which I hold out hopes that I consider realistic for a Trump presidency, assuming he makes it to his inauguration, which is by no means a given. That's not because of the strategic vision of Donald Trump. It's because the experts, with whom he is warring on virtually every foreign policy front, quietly concede that Obama administration North Korea policy simply isn't working, and Hillary Clinton's defeat provides a chance for a reset. North Korea, it should be pointed out, is not a PRC satellite or, for that matter, a particularly China-friendly state. The DPRK started out as a core ally of the Soviet Union, and the PRC's neo-colonialist penetration into North Korea after the collapse of the USSR is deeply resented. The DPRK has been attempting to cultivate ties with the United States as a counterweight to China for a generation. The United States, for its part, has cynically spurned these moves in large part, I believe, because the so-called North Korean threat provides a ready justification for military containment policies in North Asia that actually target the PRC. Since the George W. Bush years, U.S. DPRK policy has, in my opinion, been a cavalcade of incompetence. It was highlighted by the ad hoc decision to designate North Korea as a member of the Axis of Evil. It included an active and failed regime change policy in 2005-2006, and finally, the Obama administration's catastrophic foray into Libya, which convinced North Korea and the world that any country that abandons its WMD deterrent is a vulnerable target of American regime change. All of these have combined to turn North Korea's nuclear weapons diplomatic gambit into a matter of existential necessity. The Obama administration tried to wish away the North Korea problem by doing nothing, which it dignified under the term strategic patience. But North Korea, whose industrial and technological infrastructure have apparently survived both the collapse of the USSR and a decade of US-led sanctions, doggedly upgraded its nuclear weapons capability. It is now asserted quite plausibly that in the next few years, the DPRK will demonstrate its ability to strike the U.S. mainland with a nuclear-tipped ICBM. This set of affairs has galvanized the attention of the U.S. foreign policy establishment, and indeed, the first classified briefing that Donald Trump reportedly received was on the North Korean nuclear issue. Donald Trump tweeted out that North Korea would not be allowed to threaten the U.S. with nukes. It's not going to happen. U.S. options for not letting it happen range from the apocalyptic, the decapitating strike that hopefully will not turn South Korea into a sea of flames, to the hopelessly hopeful, more, better, smarter sanctions. The most logical alternative, U.S. negotiation with the DPRK, is finally receiving a mainstream hearing. The fact that it has been off the table so long has something to do with the Obama administration's anti-proliferation posturing and his Nobel Prize, but also a lot to do with the fact that if the U.S. tolerates the renegade DPRK arsenal, South Korea will be strongly inclined to go nuclear itself. And if South Korea goes nuclear, then Japan will be strongly inclined to go nuclear. And if the United States loses its position as the exclusive provider of nuclear deterrent against China, then its ability to set the security agenda in Asia and control events, for better or for worse, will deteriorate. Now, we're having a war of words over the fact that North Korea has stated it can and may do an ICBM test at the time of its choosing. U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter has stated that the U.S. will shoot down a North Korean ICBM if it flies over or toward our friends and allies. Experts have stated, better hope that doesn't happen because our gazillion-dollar anti-ICBM missile defense installation in Alaska might miss. Perhaps anxieties over damage to America's strategic posture in Asia will cause dangerous division and delay in the U.S. response and encourage Kim Jong-un to escalate with an ICBM test and beyond, thereby strengthening the hand of hawks who are ready to do something reckless and radical. I hope not. North Korea edging toward the U.S. camp would be a poke in the eye for China, a strategic win for the United States, and perhaps a manageable security conundrum for U.S. relations with Japan and South Korea. The alternative of intransigent insistence that the North Korea denuclearize or risk a decapitating strike simply becomes less palatable day by day. Donald Trump at one time expressed interest in sharing a burger with Kim Jong-un. I say, eat the burger, Donald. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you found this video useful, share it. Newsbud presentations are only made possible by our viewers. Subscribe to newsbud.com today to become part of the Newsbud community, where soon you will find exclusive content only available to our subscribers.